Hey everyone, this is Brett Favre, Green Bay Packers Super Bowl champion, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source of the Packers time zone. Go Pack That.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Good Morning Lambeau. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on Packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. Joined alongside Tim in Green Bay here to talk some Packers. We're going to recap or wrap up, I should say, Senior Week, the All-Star Week, all that good stuff, Senior Bowl Week, and get you guys some PFF grades from that game, see how PFF seen those individual players. We'll also dive into a little mock draft talk, as there's several other mocks that are coming out that we want to kind of look at and see if there's anything we're missing there in regards to extra information. So, Tim, how you doing, man?
Good morning.
Morning.
Pretty much sums it up, right? We're good to go.
Got some snow on the ground up here in Titletown, man.
Yeah, seen that, man. Looked like y'all got a little bit of a winter storm warning, right? It's all over the area, all over the bay.
Yep. Just another February day in Wisconsin, you know. I'm sure it'll be 95 degrees next week or something crazy. So
right, exactly. All right, we got a little bit of chatter in here, so a little trade conversation. Let's dive into that while we're getting kicked off here, getting woke up a little bit, man. So I see Rob's in the house here. Rob Westerman, good to see you, buddy. He says, good morning, crew. Food for thought. If you could attend one Packers game, non-Super Bowl, which game would you pick? I think he's talking about past games, right, Tim?
it sounds like it, yeah, other than a Super Bowl.
That's interesting. Other than a Super Bowl, one past game you could attend. For me, probably, I'm kind of an old soul, though. I think it'd be cool to go all the way back and watch a game, their first championship year. What year would that have been, Tim? Was it 1920? What year was it? You got the banner.
Let me just check the banners hanging up on the wall. Yeah, 29.
1929. Just to see what it was like to go to a ball game back then. You know, because I'm a history nerd like that. Just to feel the vibe, all that would be absolutely awesome. If it was one a little more modern, that comes to mind for me. Go ahead, I'll let you pick. I don't want to steal your thunder. What game comes to mind for you?
Man, I almost want to pick one that I was actually at. My wife and I were at the non-catch, the Des Bryant game. That was an epic playoff game at Lambeau Field, and I wouldn't trade that memory for the world. But I think one that I haven't attended, I would steal from you. I would have been cool to see Aaron Rodgers' first start at Lambeau, like you did. I got to see his last one. You got to see his first one, so I'm gonna go with that one. I wish we'd have known each other back then. Maybe I'd have been at that game with you, brother.
Yeah, that would have. Looking back on it, knowing the career that Aaron had, and he obviously would lead the Packers to a Super Bowl MVP, all that. You didn't have that vibe at that game, right? You didn't have that feeling like, oh, this dude's going to be great. There was a lot of, Brett's in New York. If this don't work out, Ted Thompson's getting canned, and we're in trouble, right? And then after that first throw, like I told you guys about, man, that bomb to Jennings down the seam, he caught in double coverage. And then from there on, it was just like, all right, this kid can ball. Yeah, that was a fun one. I think it would be, I guess what I'm trying to say, Tim, is it'd be even more enjoyable knowing how things ended, right, to go back and catch it. And like, this is the start of it. This is the beginning, right? But the other one for me is definitely the Ice Bowl. I think that would have been a cool one to try to survive with the folks there. You get your flask of Maker's Mark or whatever you need to keep the body temperature up, in those brutal times. But the Ice Bowl would be fun. Maybe Lombardi's first championship would be a cool one too, just because you could kind of see that whole dynasty kick off. That would have been awesome. So, yeah, there's a lot of them, man. I'll tell you one that's really fun. If it's on TV, I watch it all the time. Anytime it's on, is that Packers Seahawks. I want to say that was 2007. I could be wrong, where they had the Blizzard game there, where it just Ryan Grant.
Al Harris.
No. This is a different one.
This was we're going to get the ball and score game.
No,
that's the one you were talking about.
Wasn't that one. I'm talking about the one where they went down like 2 or 3 scores early because Ryan Grant fumbled a couple times.
Oh, I remember. Yes.
Then the snow, it's almost like the football god said, you know what, let's go ahead and give them a little help, drop a little snow in there. And Ryan Grant just went off from that point forward. Yeah, so that would be at the top of the list for me too. That seemed like it'd be an enjoyable one. And I'm sure many of our listeners would say 96, right? The NFC Championship, 96 at Lambeau with the Carolina Panthers. That seems to be one of the favorite games that year. Let's go to the chat, see what everybody's saying in here. We'll get back to the trade conversation here in a second. Let's finish what we're doing here. Let's see here.
Start in there for you.
Yeah, let's go. Rob said the banners, legendary. Watching a game in that time would be amazing. Pretty much could walk on the sideline and watch from there. They had a rope, is what they said, just a rope over there at Hagemeister. I guess it was at Hagemeister. And again, it wasn't like there was a championship game back then. Typically, it was just whoever finished with the best record, they were the champion. But just to go to a game at Hagemeister Park, or I know they played at several different locations before they settled in a City Stadium too. But that may have been actually City Stadium by that point, to be honest with you. 1929. We'd have to do a little research on that. Let's see. What else we got? Mrs. Green, if you ain't first, you're last, Ricky.
You ain't first, you're last. Ricky Bobby ain't.
Don't you put that on me, Ricky Bobby. He needs to know because he's always crying. Ron Sample said the 2025 NFC Championship game. I like it.
I love that one right there. Let's go to the future.
Yeah. Rambo09 says the Raiders at the Packers game when Reggie lateraled it to Leroy for the first ever Lambeau leap. Saw it live on TV, but being able to be the one catching Leroy, come on, son. That would be absolutely awesome.
And thank God we didn't have pylon cams and 10,000 replay assists because Reggie stepped out of bounds.
I wasn't going to say it. Oh, man. Josh Martin, the 2010 NFC Championship game. We go to the Super Bowl while crushing, I think probably meant our division rival, right? Because they played the Bears in Chicago. Bears. That was a fun game to watch. I remember watching that.
It was a fun run to the Super Bowl to watch.
Yeah, really was.
Never forget that.
The play that sticks out to me the most in that game was Aaron Rodgers' tackle after he threw the Brian Urlacher interception. Like if he doesn't make that tackle, boys, that game probably ends different. Really does. The weather being cold too. And to me, that was kind of confirmation that they made the right move moving on from Brett too, because you'll remember the NFC Championship there in 2007 or 8, whichever year it technically was. Obviously Brett was cold. They said earlier, I remember the rumors earlier in the year, and I never got confirmation if it was true. The way it ended, it kind of felt like it probably was. They played in Chicago late in the year, and Brett just played like absolute cheeks. And that's the first time I ever remember seeing Brett Favre and thinking, that's an old man that's cold. Like and I get it now. I'm 42. Let me tell you, when I walk outside now, it's different now. So when you get back there a few years later, right, and obviously Brett kind of laid that egg there in the NFC Championship against the Giants in that really cold game at Lambeau too. You get back to the NFC Championship a few years later with a younger quarterback, and lo and behold, bang, it's big difference, right? Not that he played perfect, but you could just tell Aaron was a little more equipped for the cold being younger, right? And Brett, when he was young, man, you go back and watch those games in the cold weather, it doesn't get any better than that.
Oh my gosh, classics.
I like this little impromptu history segment we got here. This is right down my alley.
I like Blake B's one here. Sterling Sharp game at the Silverdome. That was something of legend for sure.
Yeah, and that was that the throwback across the field that Brett had?
Believe so. That was the game. Yeah.
I don't know. It might have been a 50-yard touchdown, but it went in the air 70 yards the way he threw it across the field, or however long it was. So
he's got to be in the Hall of Fame, man. It's got to happen.
Yeah,
got to happen.
I think it will eventually. I don't know if it's going to happen, sooner rather than later. I hope it does, but I'm with you, man. And again, I wasn't a fan. I wasn't a Packer fan back then, right? I was a young whippersnapper, and my brother was a Steelers fan, so we kind of watched the Steelers together. But boy, when I went back and actually dove into Sterling Sharp's numbers before he got hurt, I'm like, man, if Terrell Davis is in there, then Sterling Sharp needs to be in there, because Terrell Davis is kind of in the same boat. The only difference is Sterling Sharp never won a Super Bowl, right?
That was the first Packer I ever remember cheering for as a young kid. It was 84 all day.
What I remember, my first memory of Sterling Sharp was playing Tecmo Bowl with the buddies, and them just being able to throw it up to Sterling Sharp and seeing that dumb animation that you hate to see when somebody caught a pass.
Like a Lego man catching a football.
Yes. Oh man, Sterling Sharp was a dog on it. Him and Bo Jackson were the two I remember that were just dogs on that game. So
oh yeah,
okay, sure. I want to say they had the 91 or the 92 rosters on that. But anyway, all right, let's go. I appreciate that though, Rob. Man, that's good combo there, man. Nothing like going back in time. But yeah, for me, I was born in a different era, or born in the wrong era, I should say. I should have been born in the 20s or 30s. I'm infatuated with history back then for sure. Josh Martin says, seen on Twitter, the GMs around the league believe that Garrett Wilson will ask for a trade. We talked about that a little earlier in the year as information leaked out that Garrett Wilson, there was rumors that if Rodgers and Davante Adams were back, he didn't want to be back. And that never came from his mouth, but it got leaked from somewhere because you never heard him shoot that down to the best of my knowledge. Typically what happens is that's the agent putting a filler out there, right? Like, hey, let's let people know this is a possibility. Now, listen, the Jets have his rights. If the Jets don't want to trade him, they don't have to trade him, and it could be another T. Higgins type thing, and he has to play, and that's just go with the flow there, right? Even with T. Higgins, they were willing to franchise tag, if I remember correctly. So Garrett Wilson's one of those dudes that he's always had a good attitude, I felt like. He's always produced before Aaron got there, obviously, and they started taking it in a little bit different approach to offense. It is funny, people make that sound like a negative, but Aaron had one of the best statistical years in NFL or in New York Jets history this year. So the offense was starting to come along. Obviously, you're dealing with injuries and other factors as well. You lose your head coach, halfway through the season, wherever it was. That makes it tough as well. But in terms of trading for Garrett Wilson, I wouldn't be opposed with it because I'm pretty sure he's got 1 year left on his contract, and he was a first-round pick, so you do have that option for a fifth-year option. I'm just thinking, is he that number one receiver we need? You know what I mean, Tim?
Mm-hmm.
Go trade, because here's the reality, Josh. You're going to have to give up a lot of compensation to get Garrett Wilson. I would imagine. Because he's a younger player. Typically, they look at age, right? They look at availability. They look at production. They look at the value of the contract in terms of the player you're getting. One of the bargaining chips for the Jets will be like, yeah, man, you're getting him on a rookie deal, dude. He's one of the best receivers in the game.
Right.
So I imagine it would take quite a bit to get him. But what do you think about that, Tim, in terms of Garrett Wilson? Would you be interested in trading for Garrett Wilson? As Ron Sanders says here, I'm sorry, Wilson is still on a rookie deal with a fifth-year option available. Seems like the Jets would be nuts to trade him. Go ahead, though, Tim.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to it, but you're right, though. I'm not willing to give up as much as we'd probably have to get it done. And I think it doesn't answer the question either, because I don't know how to answer that. Would Garrett Wilson be that number one guy? Well, we got no Scoot for 90% of next season or whatever it's going to end up being. So possibly, but I can't unequivocally say that, and just like you can't really say that about a Jaden Higgins, or excuse me, not Jaden Higgins. That's the guy we want. A T Higgins.
That's the guy.
A T Higgins. He would come in and he would be that dude just because you're paying him a truckload of money and he's going to be on the field. And I don't know if the offense is going to, run through him successfully or not. So I'm kind of on the fence, when it comes to that. But I do agree with what you said about Wilson, that he doesn't seem like a guy that's had an attitude problem, and the things that are going on in New York. I mean, he was obviously frustrated, and you can understand that, from just as a human being. And if you've ever played team sports, what that's like. When there's sudden change in your team, and you get a couple new faces in there, and all of a sudden you're not the man anymore. It's kind of a tough pill to swallow. And Ron's point is true. Fifth-year option available. I wonder if the Jets just do that, right?
Right.
You think they just take the option on him?
Yeah, and even if they do, they can still move him. We could trade him later. If I'm the Jets, I'm sitting down with him and going, hey, what's the issue? And if the issue is I'm not getting enough targets because of the RPO game, and for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about here, Rodgers and Davante Adams, they mastered that RPO game. Aaron can hand the ball off, or pre-snap he can make a decision based off what the defense is doing. I can just go to Tay, and he said most of the time he didn't know what Tay was going to run. He said Tay has full freedom to run whatever route he wants, depending on what he sees in the corner. Meaning pre-snap, okay, let's say the pre-snap they show just a little 5-yard cushion, right? And it's split safety. That would suggest they're probably in some kind of a quarters or a cover 2, all right? So now Tay gets to decide, do I want to attack the bunker on the sideline, or do I want to attack the seam, right? Or do I want to run a curl? Let's say those are his 3 options based off the pre-snap look. Then when the ball's snapped, he sees if the safety rotates or not. Now that narrows down. Okay, now if the safety rotates to the center of the field, right, then I'm going to run a curl underneath, right? Okay, if the safety doesn't rotate and they play too high look, I can hammer either the seam or the bunker, right? And then if it's if you go base over bunker, which is the seam, now you got to determine, is the mock dropping? And he makes all those decisions in real time and runs the choice route he wants. And Aaron's just locked onto him. He gets open, hit him with the football. Yep. If you're a receiver opposite of that, you can see how that'd be frustrating, right? It's like, I'm running this route every single play and I'm not even part of the progression, right? Yep. And I know they didn't do that all the time. They ran some true progression. They ran some pick aside. They ran some, high-low read combos, all that stuff. But the most part, since Tay got in and they got back on the same page or tried to get back on the same page, it was mostly RPO. And it was effective in 21 and 22, or I'm sorry, in 20 and 21. It was very effective, but teams have caught on, So that's how, if you're winning to, Garrett Wilson probably feels a little bit better. But when you're losing and it's not working, that's frustrating. So I don't think Garrett Wilson's a bad person, like you were saying, Tim. I don't think he's a bad teammate. It's just frustrating situation to be in,
It's so true about that RPO game, especially down in the red zone. That's a great point. I mean, that's why you see teams now starting to just pound the run when they get down in there, because, these defenses they're almost expecting it now. At least the top half of the league defenses, they're usually ready for it. And, but yeah, I think you're right about Garrett Wilson, man. Like, think about being a receiver. You're running that route up and down the field and you got to run back, whether you're getting a target or not. Mm-hmm. It can be frustrating, man, especially when you're, young and you feel like you're as close to your prime as you're going to be. You're rolling into your prime years. It's tough not getting those targets.
Right. And there's so many choice routes in the league now, too, that if a quarterback doesn't feel that receiver is running the choice route he's supposed to, then what's going to end up happening is the quarterback is going to expect him somewhere. He's not there. Now he's got to hesitate. How many times did you hear us say or hear the Aaron Rodgers hater crowd talk about how Aaron was holding the ball too long? Like, you just got to throw it. He's open. He's open. And then you would hear Kurt Warner go, he may look open to you, but he ran the wrong route based off the defense. And then the casual fan will come back and go, well, he must have ran the right route because he's open. That's not how you're taught to read that. So it can't just be one of those things. I'm going to go to the open space and know that the route combination we have called, if there's choice routes involved, you may have guessed right, but everybody else on the field can't guess the same thing every time.
That's how you throw a pick. You don't see that linebacker fading back in coverage because you're locked into this guy who ran a busted route and you're trying to get the ball in there and you don't see that defender.
Yeah, and as Ron says here, Wilson has a personality. He pushes back on Rodgers a bit. Rodgers may make some decisions based on that. But I think it's more so what Wilson isn't understanding is when you press into the RPO game or a choice route game, there is no cushion. There's no room for, but I want to do this, but I think I should do this. I'm telling you, get too many chefs in the kitchen. You get, too many, as a good Indian buddy of mine who had a real thick accent said, too many chiefs and not enough Indians is what he said. But I'm telling you, you get to that point and, you don't know where the ball's going. No one's on the same page. That's why there was always that discussion of Rodgers creating that chemistry with his receivers, right? He had it with Randall Cobb down to a T. He had it with Jordy Nelson down to a T. He had it with Devontae Adams down to a T. And anyone who didn't either grab on or invest the time into truly understanding what he was trying to accomplish, he wasn't going to risk throwing a pick because you ran the wrong route.
Because chemistry is rooted in trust. He's got to trust you.
All right. And again, if you don't like that style of ball, I completely understand. I'm not saying I'm a huge fan of it. All I'm saying is if that's the decision that the coaching staff makes that, hey, here's the offense we're running, everybody's got to be on board. All the way down the offensive lineman, because the offensive linemen have got to know with a specific look, I can't be too aggressive run blocking on this RPO or else they're going to get me with the illegal man downfield or ineligible downfield, right?
Yep.
There's just a lot of things that come into play there. And it's easy to just go, man, Aaron Rodgers is an a-hole. And it's like behind the scenes, he's trying to work this perfect masterpiece, right? And there's one or two things that are barely off. And listen, sometimes it was him too.
Yep.
I would love to know how many times he threw his head back and was frustrated, and people blamed him for being a bad teammate, and he was frustrated himself.
Yep.
Maybe reading it wrong. Now, he could have helped himself, Tim, by saying that in the media more, but we know Aaron doesn't give a damn what the media or anybody else thinks. He's not going to cater to anybody. He's not going to say it. He probably would have said it, but he heard people say Aaron needs to take more blame. He's like, well, I ain't going to now. That's just Aaron, right? So, but his teammates should know behind the scenes, for sure. If you got that good working friendship or whatever. But Zacchaeus Earls in the chat says, choose 2 players for the Packers to pick up during this offseason. All right, so we can only pick 2 on this list, Tim. You ready for this? We're going to go Max Crosby, Khalil Mack, Asante Samuel Jr., Devontae Adams, or another. He said, me personally, I like Asante Samuel Jr. a lot, and also Khalil. So he's going Khalil and Asante Samuel Jr. Tim, who would your 2? You got to pick 2 out of that list right there. Who would your 2
be? Really good question, because in theory, it's not out of the realm of possibility that the Packers could afford 2 of these guys.
Mm-hmm.
They could realistically make it happen. So I'm gonna go Khalil Mack and Tay for mine.
Yeah, it's a good question. That's a great question, Zacchaeus. The thing about Asante Samuel Jr. too, if I remember, he was a player that played pretty well, and then he had a fall off last year. I want to say there were some injuries involved in the last couple of years. I could be wrong. If you get the player that everybody thought he was coming in the draft, you might get a top 3 corner, right? And you couple him with Jeff Hafley, look out, right? That you got to think of the coaching player combo there and how they may play off of each other and improve that player from what you've seen recently. For me, though, it's probably it's Khalil Mack. Give me Khalil Mack for a year or 2, and probably Devontae Adams too, Tim, to be honest with you.
Nice.
If I have to choose between those, if you'd say no, well, he said or another, right? So
right, that's true.
My or other would be I would pick up Khalil Mack, and then I would go try to sign Chris Godwin on a 3-year deal. A 3-year deal that's really a 2-year deal. That would kind of give you an extra target there. I kind of see Chris Godwin and Garrett Wilson in the same tier, right? And people say, well, Clayton Garrett Wilson's much younger. He is, but you're going to have to give up draft capital. Chris Godwin, free agent. I know he's older, but he's 28 years old. The ankle is fully healthy. You're good to go there. There's no worries there. He's produced. We showed it the other day, the PFF grades. He's just been a star.
You want to add veterans, right? We talked about peppering in some veterans, and the best way to do that is 3-year deals that are 2-year deals, or 2-year deals that are really 1-year deals. I don't care if you have to go back to the drawing board after each season. When you get guys that are towards those middle to later stages of their career, if you can get them to go on a run, and you don't have to commit long term, and you're not mortgaging your future on a bunch of old dogs, I think it's a great approach. And those suggestions really kind of cover that. The K Mac and Tay Adams, you're getting some vets in there. You're non-committal long term. You could probably get a couple years out of them. Same is true for Chris Godwin. We start looking at Max Crosby. That's a guy that's going to probably want more than 2 years or something. 1 to 3 year range. He's going to want to probably, if he doesn't, I don't think he wants to leave Vegas, honestly. And if he did, he'd probably be looking for, something a little bit longer term.
Yeah, I could see that too. All right, so here's the wide receiver grades. Let's see if we can find Chris. There's Chris Godwin right here at 86.3 last year. Now, keep in mind, 397 snaps because he dislocated that ankle in that freak tackle. But let's see where Garrett Wilson is on this list, and we want to do him justice and look at his entire career. So he finished 22nd with a 78.9. Not a bad year, right? 696 snaps is what he played. I'd love to see his targets too. I think he did finish with what is this right here? It doesn't. Oh, that's offensive snaps. Okay, yeah. So Garrett Wilson played over 1,000 snaps, right? Let's see if it'll pull up his. Here we go. This is what we're looking for right here, boys.
Get ready to go.
So in 2024, he had a 78.9. In 2023, he was a 72.9. And then 2022, he was an 82.7. So you're seeing a little up and down there, right? His first year with Aaron, it's easy to go, yeah, well, that was with Aaron Rodgers. He dropped. Aaron only played, 3 snaps before his Achilles. So you got to throw that out the window. And then it becomes who was their backup quarterback? He was trash. Okay, how many excuses we're going to make? It's when Aaron's on the field, it's not working. When Aaron's off the field, it didn't work, Again, I'm not saying Garrett Wilson's a bad player. Don't get me wrong. He's a top 10 pick.
You can only catch him. He can't throw him to himself and catch the ball,
Yeah.
What about Godwin? What is he looking like?
Chris Godwin, let's see here, the 10th overall wide receiver. His grades over the years, starting in 2017, 81, 80, 90, 76, 81, 75, 77, 88, or 86, I think that is there. 86.3. So, yeah, he's definitely he's been solid, man. He's been a stud. He's a lot taller. I say a lot taller, a couple inches taller than Garrett Wilson, so that kind of feels a little more like an outside wide receiver to kind of help replace Christian Watson. He can go outside. He can play in the slot as well. As you see, his slot snaps were 243. He had 153 out wide. He's 6'1", 208. Coming out of college, he had 4.4 speed. He was a third-round pick. The thing that sticks out to me about Chris Godwin, too, hell of a teammate. You never hear anything negative about him.
He was the best guy around.
Perfect drop. So I want to say his drop rate is really good too. Like he's got sure hands, and we know that was an issue for us last year as well. So that's why Chris Godwin of the free agent list kind of grabs my attention the most.
He's not going to be a locker room issue. He's going to be a guy that's probably going to lead both by example and probably vocally too.
Right.
And kind of in that, it's almost crazy to think he's only 28. You almost think he's been around a lot longer than he has been.
Yeah. Now, here's the name that gets tossed around a lot in free agency, T. Higgins, right? Starting in 2020, a 75, 83, 78, 72, then an 88 last year, sixth highest graded receiver last year. He's 6'4", 219. Good football player, man. Damn good football player. Had a great year last year, no doubt about it. It's just, do you want to pay that, $35 million per or whatever it's going to end up being?
Don't put that name in my mouth right there.
And I think Chris Godwin's going to get paid good money. I just don't think it's going to be near at the level as a T. Higgins, right?
Yep.
So yeah, there's a couple of players there. I want to say if there was someone else, who was the other guy that was getting thrown around, wide receiver for Seattle, DK Metcalf. They were talking about some trade rumors there. There's Jackson Smith and Jigba. Let's see where DK is. He ain't on the first page. That's interesting.
Uh-oh.
That's very, very interesting. Let's see. There's Romeo Dobbs. Did DK? I had to have passed him up. He can't be graded less than Romeo Dobbs, right? Let's see here. Seattle. We're looking for Seattle, right? There's Jackson Smith and Jigba. Got to be overlooking him here. There we go. DK Metcalf, 74.3. So DK and his scores, 73. Has he already been in the league that many years, Tim? Holy cow. It was like it was yesterday he was in the draft.
Yeah.
That's wild. So, yeah, 73, 82, 80, 77, 80, 74. He's 6'3", 229. You guys know he's a physical specimen. Played out wide, 716 snaps, was in the slot, 108. Get a little bit of versatility there. The big thing with DK is kind of in the same boat as Garrett Wilson. You're going to have to give up some draft capital to get him, right? And I'm not opposed to that. If you can give up a third-round pick for somebody and get a number one receiver, that's a heck of a trade. I just have a hard time believing they're going to go with that trade that easily,
Right.
So we'll see.
I would agree.
It would all come down to precedent, and I don't really want to take the time to look at all the wide receiver trades over the years and see exactly how much draft capital they got. The market would suggest there's a premium on receivers right now because it's through the roof when you look at the salary cap from that standpoint. So, Josh Martin says, please no T. Higgins.
Amen, Josh.
Yeah, I'm okay with anybody for the right price. But the reason I tend to agree with Josh and Tim here is because it sounds like he's going to break the bank. You know,
Yep.
he really does. So,
And he's not going to bring you that veteran leadership you're looking to get too out of somebody like this. You know, you're talking about adding that element to our staff. You know,
yeah, that can be tough, man. It can. And then when you
I
look
could be
at-
wrong. I just don't see him as that guy. You know,
right. I mean, when you're talking about him potentially being the highest paid receiver in the league, let me ask you if you would take T. Higgins over these guys. Would you take T. Higgins over Puka Nacua,
no,
Nico Collins,
no,
Mike Evans,
hell no,
A.J. Brown,
nope.
Amon-Ra St. Brown?
Maybe I don't like him.
I would not. Tim, I think for Tim it's because he hates the Lions, but that's okay. Drake London. I would probably take T over Drake. I could see that. Maybe. I don't know, kind of the same person, right?
Yeah.
The same player, 6'4".
Same player, yeah, not same person.
Yeah, he's younger than T. 87.8. His grades have been solid too, man. 83, 78, 87. I don't know. It's close. I'll just put it that way. I think I would probably take Drake London over T. Higgins because of the age factor, and there's probably some more upside there now. Malik Neighbors, no.
Nope.
Justin
Not saying anything bad about Malik Neighbors. Shavink
Right.
might be listening.
Justin Jefferson, Tim. How about him? Would you take?
No, I'd take Jefferson over Higgins for sure.
Chris Godwin? I'm the poster child for Chris Godwin in free agency this year. There's a conversation to be had there. I tend to lean toward Chris Godwin because of the money. You know, if it was the same amount of money, I might go T. Higgins.
Yep.
But Jamar Chase, no. Josh Downs, yeah, I would take T. Higgins over Josh Downs. Lad McConkey, I don't know. Lad had a pretty good year, 84.3. Jawan Jennings out of San Francisco. Now you're getting into the names where you go, yeah, I'd probably take T. Higgins over him.
Sure.
Chris Olave, probably. Zay Flowers, yeah. Terry McLaurin, maybe.
Mm.
Brian Thomas Jr., I'd probably take Brian Thomas Jr. over T. Higgins. The reason I'm doing this, guys, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Jackson Smith and Jigba was more of a slot, so I'd probably take T. Higgins based off our situation.
Right.
You see in the top 20, Tim, there's like 3 receivers that I would take T. Higgins over. Now, you're going to be paying T. Higgins the most expensive contract. That's what we're talking about, right? Now, you would be overpaying for great. I think if he performs last year, you will be overpaying for great. There's no doubt about that, and that's okay. But do you have everything else in place and all you need is that receiver? I don't think that's the case.
I don't think so. Yeah.
So it's a good conversation, though, man. It's fun to have because, again, nobody's saying T. Higgins is bad at football. We're just simply saying,
Right.
look at everything else, right? Look at everything that's involved. Biz here says, great look at Godwin. Seems like the best option if Baker would let it happen. That's the other thing, right, Biz? They're not going to want to let him go, you know. Yep. So we'll see if they get a deal done for sure. Let's see here. Biz also said DK was boom or bust on my fantasy team. Sorry to hear that, but it's like either feast or famine there, right? Prince in the chat. I think with free agent wide receivers, we should be looking in the 10 to 20 ranked area. The top 10 are expensive and a lot older. We could do that too. I don't know how far the free agent list goes. Let me do this. Let's see if we can get it pulled up here without having to change the page.
I think Prince is right. This is why I lean more towards let's draft a guy. Just looking at that, because anything in the top 10, he's absolutely right. They're going to cost more, and they're probably going to be a little bit older. Yeah. I mean, there's some automatic no's on that list too, including that knucklehead right there, Stephon Diggs. No, thank you.
So if we were to look at the free agents here, and again, there's going to be some guys get cut, like Tay may be one, Devontae Adams may be one, right? There's going to be some cap casualties. I truly believe that. So going off of his kind of comment here, Prince's comment, we're going to focus on younger guys, right, instead of the older dudes. So let's say anybody. Let's start with under 30 outside of that top realm here, okay? The first one is Marquise Hollywood Brown. 2 years, $9 million is what they're saying. To me, that's not an upgrade. That's not a true number one receiver, right? Darius Slayton, for me, it's a no. Had a 59 last year. The year before, 67, 66. That's kind of he would be kind of the equivalent to what we already have on the team in terms of receivers that are not named Jaden Reed, right?
Right.
Keenan Allen, he's old. Right. Deontay Johnson, hasn't he had a lot of trouble everywhere he's went? Am I thinking right? Did he quit on the Ravens this year too? Let's see here. Johnson has been on 4. Yep, here we go.
Yeah, no.
Johnson
no
has been on 4 rosters dating back to last offseason. Let's just move it along. If everywhere you go it smells like crap, you're going to have to check your boot there, bub.
Yep.
And then the last one here is Mike Williams, who the Jets, pretty much cut bait from because he and Rodgers. You guys remember the interception that ended the game there where Mike Williams ran the wrong choice?
Yeah.
And they called it out on the broadcast. Everybody knew that. Yeah, he ran the wrong route there. He ran, and people go, well, how do you know it's the wrong route? How do you know Aaron wasn't right? If everyone else is saying Aaron read it right, there's an open space where Aaron wants to throw the football, and then he has to throw it where Mike is. That's the perfect example of a bad choice route that the quarterback decided there. Aaron would have tucked that thing down and tried to find somebody else. So, so Mike Williams on a decline. So, Prince, I got to say, man, who do you have in mind there? Is there anybody specifically? Because when I look at that list, I don't know, Tim, do you disagree, man? Is there anyone there that you go, hey, go get him?
Not really. And when I look at the whole list, I mean, yeah, you're right. It's like all signs point to Godwin. If you're going to go after any of these guys,
it's these two right here, right? T. Higgins and Chris Godwin are the two.
But see, the money is what just turns me off of Higgins. I
Right.
feel like but again, we have the Tampa Bay factor too. They can just sign him and keep him around, and
Right.
he's off the board. And then we're looking at, T. Higgins is probably your best bet, but then you're going to have to fork over 25 to 30 million to get him. And oh, by the way, we have other guys that need to get paid.
Right. Yeah.
I think about Zach Tom, and I think about we've got guys coming off of rookie contracts too here, in the very near future. So I just don't know if we dump all that money into a T. Higgins.
Right. Now I'm with you, man. And here's the thing: go get a T. Higgins. Then go find that dude. Right. In the draft.
Yeah,
He was
Jaden
drafted.
Higgins.
He was drafted. Yeah, exactly. He was drafted in the 2nd round, Tim. T. Higgins was. Chris Godwin was drafted in the 3rd round. Amari Cooper, he was the 4th overall selection. So
I always liked Amari Cooper. I don't know what happened with him, man.
I think he's just. I think age hit
fall off
him.
is real, right? Or father time catching up to him, or
Yeah, I think the age is catching up to him. He's declined every year, and they said that he is a kind of a quiet person, very introverted, but a great teammate. Just does what he's supposed to do. That type of dude. Stephon Diggs, he was drafted in the 5th round. You see, you're seeing a theme here, right?
Yeah, I'm seeing a theme right there with Diggs too. He hasn't played good ball since 2022.
Yeah, I mean that's what last time he was elite for sure.
Yeah,
he was hovering around the 21
that's
spot.
a good point. I shouldn't say not good ball. He wasn't elite since 2022.
And listen, that's what the teams have been expecting from him too. The way they traded for him and everything.
Yep.
He tends to piss everybody off everywhere he goes, but that's a story for a different day. DeAndre Hopkins was a former 1st-round pick, albeit back in 2013. Marquise Hollywood Brown was a 1st-round pick. Darius Slayton was a 5th-round pick. I can't believe he's still playing ball, man. I feel like he's been in the league for 30 years and he's only 28 years old. That's just crazy. Yep. Keenan Allen was a 3rd-round pick. You're seeing, man, most of these guys, 3rd-round pick, Deontay Johnson, Mike Williams was a 1st-round pick. So you've probably got well over half of these players, more than half of these players, wide receiver free agents that are kind of at the top of the market that are outside of the 1st round. So why not go find that next player? And you go, well, Clayton, can the Packers do that? I think they can. They found Jaden Reed. That's your leading receiver. He was in the 2nd round.
Yep.
What if you pull the trigger on another wide receiver in the 2nd round this year and you get the next Jordy Nelson, you get the next Greg Jennings, you get the next, Devontae Adams, right? That's how you find them. There's just no precedent for going into free agency, overpaying and getting these players. That's why I'm so hesitant on Chris Godwin, and I like Chris Godwin more than I do T. Higgins.
Yep.
So, but yeah, like Randy said here too, if there is some truth to this, and I'm glad I'm not the only one that feels like there is some truth to this. Randy Cleaver says not only the money, but I think Higgins is an attitude problem. And like with Chris Godwin, you don't have that. You don't. You're talking less money, just as good a production, actually more consistent production over the years, a little bit older, and no attitude problem, right? Same thing with Amari Cooper there in terms of the attitude problem, but he's obviously on the decline. So,
right.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not the only one that feels that way, Randy, because it just feels like he's every offseason the last 2 or 3 years, it's been something about T. Higgins, So
Yeah, even with the decline in the age, I'd rather have Amari Cooper over Higgins at this point, honestly.
Yeah.
Definitely over Stephon Diggs. Because like you said, we've been trying for a while to kind of get that toxicity out of that locker room, and we don't want another me guy coming into the fold.
Right, exactly. All right, so there you go. Prince says Goblin is a fan favorite too, real community guy. That's the way I've always understood it too, Prince. So
Yep.
Yeah. All right, let's see. We've actually got a question here in the chat that I'm going to hit real quick. Tim, if you want to read this, I'll get our draft board pulled up. We'll answer this question. We'll get out of here, man.
Yeah, Ron Sandville, do you have information on Connor Colby, guard for Iowa? Is he even in the draft this year? I believe he is.
Let's see.
I don't know where we have him on our board, but I think he is.
Yes, sir. Right there. We've got Connor Colby out of Iowa in the 211 spot. We got him listed as an interior offensive lineman. In 2022, 276 at his position. 2023, he was 71st. 2024, he dropped back down to 276 again. PFF Big Board had him at 118.
He's at 161 there now.
So he's dropped. There you go. So our board has probably got him a little higher than he would have been before. The PFF grades are definitely pulling him down on our board.
Yeah.
The consensus Big Board has him at 152. So yeah, to answer your question, it's looking like he's going to go somewhere between 150 and 170 as it sits right now, Ron. He like I said, we've got him in the 210 spot. So to me, that would be a little rich to take him at that moment. But you never know, man. Goody may love him. I may be a knucklehead, right? Well, we know I'm a knucklehead. So
played a lot of right guard in Iowa, some left guard in 2022, but mostly right guard.
Yeah. And again, since we're in here, let's take a quick look at the wide receivers, and let's just take it from the top down here. When you're talking about the potential players that you could get as a wide receiver in this draft, Tetero McMillan, I think, will be long gone before the Packers pick at 23. And then by the time the next receiver comes up, it's going to be Egbuka. That's one that I would be okay to take at 23.
Yep.
Luther Burden, I would be okay taking with him at 23 based off of our board. I'm not like overly excited about it, but that would make sense if you wanted to go first round. But I feel like the real value is if you wait a little later, like let's say that Matthew Golden somehow, some way falls to us in the second round. I'd be okay with that. Trey Harris from Ole Miss, I'd be okay with that. Be a little bit of a reach for a first round pick, in my opinion. Restrepo, more of a slot guy, right, Tim? We talked about him, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
So I don't think we need him. We need that guy that can play X. He can play Z, move around a little bit, but play on the boundary out there on the outside. You got Torrey Horton in the 77 spot out of Colorado State. So that would be, let me get our draft picks up here. 77 would be kind of in between. If he were to fall to the third round, I'd have no problem with Torrey Horton unless he's a slot. Let's look on PFF real quick and see. I want to say he was more of a slot, but I could be wrong. Torrey Horton, according to the PFF Big Board, played his snaps.
He's a big guy.
Let's see. Yeah, so he's outside, wasn't he? Wide.
Yeah.
Well, actually, he didn't play many snaps this year, did he, Tim?
Let's see.
Only
Played only in 5 games this year, yeah.
Yeah. So in 2023, he had a great year, 87.9. He played out wide 317 snaps and actually played in the slot 127. He's 6'3", 185. I'd be okay with Torrey Horton there if he were to fall to the third round. Hell, if Goody's got a second round grade on him and they take Torrey Horton in the second round, who am I to say that's a bad pick?
We got Pat Bryant on there. Anywhere in this range? Because he's another guy. Pat Bryant out of Illinois.
Let's go on down here. We got Tez Johnson out of Oregon, smaller dude, so I would say no to that. Look who's next on the list, man. Jack Besh. Jack Besh balled out, man. We were going to hit the PFF grade.
He doesn't make it past the second round. There's no way, right?
Yeah.
There's no way he makes it past the second round.
I just don't know, man. I mean, let's see what everybody's saying. Let's see what the
I guess that's true. We need to look at those picks and what their needs are too.
So PFF Big Board has him in the 56 spot. That would suggest no, he wouldn't make it. And I don't know where he's at now on the Big Board, but when we put our board together, that's where he was at. The consensus Big Board had him in the 136 spot. So that would suggest he's making it out of the second round. Daniel Jeremiah didn't have him in the top 50, so he may have had a second-round grade on him. It just, we don't know, not yet until his entire board's released. And then the 33rd team had him at 82. So that would suggest he is going to fall out of the second round, Tim. You know?
Well, then that's a guy you definitely consider for sure.
Right. That's
unless you already took Jaden Higgins in the second round.
Next, we have Jalen Royals out of Utah State. We talked about
There's
that.
a guy.
Packers have been linked to him, no doubt. Next would be Savion Williams, however you say it, out of TCU. And then I'm trying to see, because I think Jaden Higgins actually dropped on our board was the issue. Did he drop that far? He shouldn't have dropped that far. How did we miss Jaden Higgins, our boy? There's Pat Bryant at 120.
Yep.
Where is Jaden Higgins at? Surely he didn't fall that far. Let me just search. Then we'll get out of here. Because this is, again, this stuff's been shuffling a lot, guys, as we're putting all the information in. Jaden Higgins. There he is. He's at 67, Tim. Sorry. Wait, how do we look? Your favorite wide receiver. Yeah, so Jaden Higgins would be right below Restrepo.
Right.
Restrepo is 61. So Jaden Higgins, man, that just seems, and the Packers met with him too, guys.
Yep.
That seems like, give me him in the second round. And
if you don't take a shot there, you're probably going to look at that 6th or 7th, later round picks trying to snag a receiver or something.
Yeah, exactly. And here's the thing. Where's the depth for the draft? They say in the trenches. It's defensive and offensive line, right? Both lines. If that's the case, your first round pick, all bets are off. You take the best player, like whoever Goody's best guy is on the board, if he's not going to trade around, that's the dude you take regardless of position if he's a physical freak. I could see them going D tackle round 1. And then when you come to round 2, there's probably going to be a lot of offensive linemen there. You could go offensive line round 1 as well. But let's say there's a bunch of offensive and defensive linemen there. Hey, let's go ahead and get our wide receiver because we got a cluster of players we really like in the trenches. So they may go, best player available round 1, wide receiver round 2, and then after that, focus on the trenches. But keep in mind, we need a corner too if Ja's not going to be here, which we don't know. Ja may be here. Ja may be fine. He may be perfectly happy, right? And Goody might
unless they go after Stephon Diggs in free agency.
That could be an issue.
That'd be an interesting locker room dynamic.
Yeah. Although I got to say this, Tim, ever since Trent Williams and Richard Sherman were able to play together on San Francisco's roster, I think you could probably make it work. Because Trent Williams punched Richard Sherman in the face at midfield, and then they end up playing together a few years later.
It's like the old Bulls, right? The Rodman coming to Chicago after breaking Scottie Pippen's nose and had all that stuff. Them guys figured out how to win 3 titles. So you're right. It's not impossible, right?
All right. Exactly. So there you go, man. Again, I could see a wide receiver in the first round. I could see Higgins in the second. I could see a lot of these guys. But when it comes to wide receivers in terms of who's linked to the Packers, the top wide receiver that's been linked to the Packers is Jaden Higgins in the 67 spot. They met with him. The next wide receiver.
Have there been any other ones? Oh, Royals, yeah. Jalen Royals, that's right.
There's been several. Jalen Royals at 89 on our board will be the next one. Obviously, he played the same college Jordan Love did. And then the next wide receiver to be linked to the Packers so far. And again, there's going to be top 30 visits too, and they'll get a cheese mark as well. There'll be meetings at the combine. They'll get marks as well. We're gonna differentiate between the top 30 visits, though, for sure.
Okay.
Jalen Knoll in the 127 spot out of Iowa State. That's Jaden Higgins' teammate. They met with him as well. All right. So if you were to just take into consideration the wide receivers that the Packers have already met with, the 2 at the top of the list is Jaden Higgins, right? If I can find him again here. Jaden Higgins in the 67 spot, and then Jalen Royals in the 89 spot. So might be one of those things. If Jaden Higgins is there in the second round, you take him. If he's already drafted, then you go with Jalen Royals in the third, or maybe reach a little bit and grab him there. So,
yep. Unless you're looking later rounds, Kobe Hudson, I don't know if he's on our board. That's a guy that if we don't take a receiver early and we're trying to pick up a scrap later in the draft, Kobe Hudson out of UCF is a another, yes, he's over 6 foot guy. You know how I am. But he had some versatility, had some slot snaps too. Going to do a film study on him probably this week. So just someone to kind of keep in mind for the mid to later rounds. Where's he on our board? Do we have him? Oh, there he is.
213. No.
Okay.
213. And what's bringing him down is his let's see, what's bringing him down? What's bringing him down the most is the consensus big board. They had him at 192 when we took the info in. Mm-hmm. Let me see where they got him now and see if he changed. Kobe Hudson, right? Kobe Hudson. Let's see here. You said it's from UCF, is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's see here. UCF. Kobe Hudson, they have him at 237 on here right now. So he's actually dropped. So my board is picking him up. If we had done the consensus big board data right now, he'd drop even further on our board. So that's why
PFF's higher on him. PFF's got him at 146 now.
There you go. So he dropped on both boards then, right?
Yep.
Because they had him at 125 before, so he has dropped a little bit. But we're going to keep him. We're going to hold steady there with where we had him, because again, there's been no more football played other than Senior Bowls and East West Shrine Bowls. So now other people are leapfrogging him. That's going to change it a little bit. And we add bonuses to those that we felt like Daniel Jeremiah really highlighted as stood out at the Senior Bowl. So there you go. Deadfish is asking, where's Nick Nash? Let's see where Nick Nash is. I want to say he was fairly high. I could be wrong. 122 is where we've got Nick Nash. And the thing that's bringing him down the most is the consensus big board had him at 171. And now they have him at 147. So we're going to hold true to the rankings we've got in there early. So we got Nick Nash at 122. His PFF grade last year, Tim, he was the 20th graded wide receiver, man. Solid year there. So
there's a guy.
Let's see what's his what's Nick Nash's size like here. Let's look real quick here. Nick Nash, where are you, sir? And PFF must have him a little lower than I thought. I thought they had him a little higher. They got him in the 160 mark. Yeah, Nick Nash, 6'3", 195, Tim. Big body receiver there, man. So
what we're after.
Yeah. And what's crazy is he played 514 slot snaps this year. Last year he played 402 wide snaps. So he excelled as that what we call a slot bully. When you put those big body receivers in the slot, they can dig out those safeties on run plays, that type of thing. But that shows he's got versatility. So who knows, man? Maybe the Packers will be interested. All right, that's it, guys. We're gonna get out of here. Tim, you got anything else you want to hit on before we move on here?
Yeah, Jaden Higgins or no one. Mm-hmm. That's it. I'm in love with Jaden Higgins.
Yes, sir.
Go up and get him.
Deadfish says, I think you have Kobe on the list twice. We probably do, Deadfish. The list that we use to create the initial list, there's a bunch of duplicates toward the bottom. And some of them are kind of, as we get the information in, we've got some double types. We're going to go through and remove all those. So some, I don't know what that double stamp, triple stamp, and double stamp. I don't know how you would say that.
Can't triple stamp a double stamp.
Let's see. You said, who was it? Kobe? Is that who it was?
Kobe Hudson.
Hudson. Let's go look real quick. There's Kobe Hudson. It's showing 2. So yeah, we've got one in the 223 spot and one in the 214 spot. So when we took information down, we had 2 names in. We'll give him the higher one for sure. Yeah. So the 125 we had in was one of the most recent ones we put in. So let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Good catch there. That saves me a little bit of time on the backside there. Appreciate that, Mr. Deadfish. Let's go ahead and get him out of the system. We'll use the higher grade there.
Prince in the chat said Higgins is the 2025 rake straw in my household. Definitely true. Hopefully he doesn't end up in Detroit also, right?
I remember that. Yeah, that was of all the people, of course, it was the Detroit Lions that would take rake straw. So, all right. We're out, guys. Appreciate y'all. Everybody have a great day. There's Wolfpack asking, where's Tez Johnson? Tez Johnson a little bit higher.
You're not going to let us go, Clay.
I know. I hate to tell people no, man. We had him. We talked about him a little bit there. Didn't we have him toward the top? Am I thinking right? Maybe not. Let me search him and then we're out. Hate to tell people no on here, man. Appreciate y'all hanging out with us. 83 is where we got Tez Johnson. That's where we got him at. So, again, just a smaller receiver, but, man, to be a smaller dude, Tim, 4th in 2022, 4th in PFF grade, at wide receiver, 20th, 31st. He technically regressed according to PFF, but man, when you're in that top 50 consistently, says a lot. Says a whole lot. 33rd team had him at 99. Daniel Jeremiah does not have him in the top 50. Consensus Big Board had him at 88. PFF Big Board had him at 84. So there you go. All right, Tim. Appreciate your time, brother.
Thanks, Clay.
All right. We'll see you guys tonight. PTA Live, 7 p.m. Central Time. Everybody have a great day out there. If you're in the Wisconsin, the great state of Wisconsin, make sure you stay warm. I know y'all got some snow blowing through. We're going to be 67 down here. I'm going to hang up right now because everybody's going to be mad at me.
And we go. Bye, guys.